Hello, I'm Ian Brooker, and this is the Sirens of Audio.
Without me, there would be no new Doctor Who reviews. You and our fellow podcasters and Who-tubers would still be obsessed with the television show, as limited and unfulfilling as those episodes you now so mercilessly attack.
You knew your podcast was niche.
Niche, yes, but I soldiered on, and I did not expect to be abandoned. Many thousands of hours ago, when I started this podcast, the TV series was then a star, until it arranged its own self-detonation.
You were the audiophile. It was your duty.
It was an honor, or so I thought then. I was to be the one to create the podcast that would give us mastery over good storytelling.
Well, you succeeded. And you are revered for it.
Revered? Here? I was abandoned.
The histories say that you were lost in the new YouTube algorithm.
I was sacrificed to that algorithm. I generated those episodes, and for what? To be blown out of existence into this black corner of the internet? My brothers became Who-tubers and streamers, but I was abandoned and forgotten.
No, not forgotten. All these years I've been subscribed and honoured you as my favourite podcast.
Subscribed? You should have clicked the notification bell!
G'day audiophiles, this is the Sirens of Audio, the show that explores the universe of Doctor Who and other cult TV in the audio medium. I'm Dwayne.
And I'm Philip. G'day Dwayne, g'day audiophiles.
Hey Philip, how's things with you? What's happening?
Well, life is happening, things are happening, all's good.
Today's going to be a great show. We are going to be speaking with a Big Finish actor who has been with the company for many, many years, is still doing stuff sporadically, and it's Ian Brooker, one of the sort of early company men for Big Finish. It's going to be a great chat that we were able to share very shortly, Philip.
Certainly, man of many voices and many parts. So he's had an amazing career and we've loved him in many things. So looking forward to having a good chat with him.
We have. But as always, we have to mention the live events that we've got coming up. We have Carol Ann Ford appearing in Sydney and Melbourne in October, and we have Sally Navette appearing in November. So all the details for those events can be found at sirensofaudio.com. So make sure you jump onto the website and book for those. Carol Ann is just getting bigger and bigger as every day goes by. So make sure you get in and book early so you're not disappointed. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people are hoping to hear some stories, to hear what things were cut from the final episode, because Susan should have been in a lot more than she was. And so there's going to be some good stories to tell about what happened at the end of the last season.
Absolutely. That is for sure. I'm looking forward to that myself. And to be in the presence of such an icon of Doctor Who, it's going to be thrilling for this old Doctor Who fan. I know that. All right. Before we bring Ian on, we're going to talk about a story that he appeared in. But first, Philip, do you know what?
What, Dwayne?
We have to jump down the rabbit hole. Let's go. Something a little bit different for the rabbit hole today, Philip. I'm going to share the screen because I came across this comment on the Big Finish Audio Facebook page, and I just want to get your opinion, because now that Doctor Who is temporarily off the air, as it has been before, there are many fans of the younger generation And I know you're having some issues with learning the younger generation's lingo too, Philip, at the moment. So that's very interesting. I'll see if I can bring those words into the conversation. But I want to get some comments from you on the comment that was left here. Okay, so we've got new fans coming in, listening to Early Big Finish for the very big time, the very first time. And I noted this comment here by Christian LS. I made my first venture into the Eighth Doctor's monthly adventures. I'm absolutely astonished with every story I've heard so far, especially after finishing Zagreus. I'm ready to enter the next arc for 8 and Charlie with Scherzo. So here's all the stories I've heard between Storm Warning and Zagreus, ranked from favourite to least favourite so far. So we've got in the 11 stories that he's heard, he's got ranked from 1 to 11. Chimes of Midnight is number 1. Then Storm Warning. Zagreus is number 3. I'm very impressed with that because I'm a huge Zagreus fan. Seasons of Fear, Neverland, Sword of Orion, Minuet in Hell, The Stones of Venice, The Time of the Daleks, Invaders from Mars, and I'm sorry to see that Embrace the Darkness is in at number 11. But notice the edit there. Just finished Scherzo. What a masterpiece. If I wasn't so enamored with Chimes of Midnight, this would easily be the best story I've heard so far. So I don't know if you got a chance to see that comment in your social media travels, Philip, but I just want to get your thoughts on that and the ranking. What do you think of that ranking?
Well, can I say it's very hard to rank the first 2 seasons because I think they're all so good. I'm always nervous about doing too much ranking. It's been interesting. I've been watching all of Josh's videos as he's been ranking each Doctor with his different videos at the moment. And I like how he's done the rankings because rather than trying to rank them in order, he actually puts in terms of his categories in terms of, for him, the best and what's not for him. So even though they're ranked, when you've got several at the top, it doesn't quite feel quite so bad. And I don't agree with all his rankings, but then no Doctor Who fan ever agrees with it. For me, actually, I think he's missed something. I must admit, Embrace the Darkness, and we'll be talking about this soon, was probably one of my least favourite when I first listened to it. Listening to it again this week, boy, it's good. And it's actually moved up my opinions a bit, which we'll talk about later, so I'll talk about why. It is always very, very hard ranking certain stories. Sometimes ones that don't appeal to you are fine. And I will confess, Embrace the Darkness didn't appeal to me the first time I listened to it. There's a bit of body horror stuff, and there's a few things that actually turned me off. This time I listened through, though, and we'll talk about it soon. I'll talk about why it's actually improved off my list. But for me, I think all the second season is a bit strong in the first. Paul McGann starts so strong with his first season, but the arc in the second season and how they all play together is, to me, utterly, utterly brilliant. But, I think you can easily swap all these around different ways and still enjoy them. There's ones in the middle there that I'd drop lower down. There's certainly ones towards the bottom. Invaders from Mars, I love. It's so funny. Embrace the Darkness, I love. Time of the Daleks, too. I'd probably drop Minuet in Hell and sort of Orion down, maybe. It's very hard. Seasons of Fear is very, very high. Most Doctor Who fans wouldn't rate that as high as that.
Yes.
Though I do love Seasons of Fear. I mean, there's some lovely twists in it, and the way it comes together. But it doesn't usually get as the higher ranking. And Zagreus, I always rank lower as well, just because even though it's got everyone in it, there's other things are better. What do you think about the rankings?
Well, I thought it was very interesting that at the time Zagreus came out, it was universally panned everywhere. But there seems to be a bigger appreciation for it looking back from this far away. So I really like that Zagreus is up so high. It's really difficult. For me, I've got a definite top and I've got a definite bottom. So the top is, yes, Chimes of Midnight. I think most fans would agree that would be top of the list. It's very hard to topple that one. But the bottom for me would most definitely be Minuet in Hell. Even though I feel the same as you in Embrace the Darkness the first time around, I found it a hard listen because it's one of those stories that I feel needs to be listened to without ambient noise going on around you, and that's how I was listening to Big Finish at the time, and I'll mention that more in a moment. But Minuet in Hell just seemed to drag on and on. It was just a long story, unnecessarily long. and it was very changed from the audio-visual. Now, the audio-visual version, I think I prefer it because it's set back at the actual Hellfire Club back in the 19th century, I think it is. So, I like that setting better than the modern setting of this rewritten Minuet in Hell. So, but it does. Yeah. It is the appearance of the Brigadier with the Eighth Doctor, so that is important for that. So you've got to give it that.
It really is 3 CDs worth, though, because they pack every possible thing onto it. And I think I know Gary would say it was far too long. He wasn't happy with its length in the end because he felt it was too long. I guess for part of me, I love runs of excellent Doctor Who, and so part of why I think the first 2 seasons of Paul McGann works so well is you have this run where I don't think you actually have a bad story in that entire run. Every story is good. Some will appeal more than others, and I think on second, third, fourth, fifth listens, some stories appeal more than others. But in terms of a run of Doctor Who stories, you've got 10, 11, and then actually if you go to Scherzo as well, which I think you can do, you've got a run of I think 12 stories where there's not a bad one in the 12. So although you can rank them up and down or what your preference is, I don't think there is actually a bad one in that entire run of 12, which is pretty astonishing because Doctor Who rarely has huge long runs. In terms of TV show, I think that the longest run for me is probably the Unicorn and the Wasp to the Stolen Earth, where there's not a bad story in that run. But then every story keeps changing and the tone, and that's what about Doctor Who. Its tone should change, the feeling should change, and for that 11, that 12, if you include Scherzo, the tone is so different for each of those. A lot of those stories. So you have Base Under Siege, you have monsters, you've got Daleks and Cybermen, you've got everything you could possibly want. You've got outright horror, you've got body horror, but you've got comedy, you've got returning monsters you wouldn't expect. You've got multiple Doctor stories. It really is an amazing run of 12 episodes. And I'd say to anyone out there, if you do not own the first 2 seasons of the Paul McGann set, get them, because you can't go wrong with any story in that entire run.
Absolutely true. And it's exciting for me to see these younger fans diving in and experiencing these stories for the first time, because I remember how excited I was, and it's nice to get that same excitement in new fans coming along.
As I say, the Doctor Who show did the 5 top Davo stories recently, and I actually put up my list of my 5 top Davo stories, and that was put to shame by Rob, who actually included a Big Finish Davo story in his top 5. And I wasn't thinking outside the box, and shame on me for not actually doing that. Because if I
Which one did he include?
My top 5, I guess it won't be a spoiler now, Spare Parts. So He included Spare Parts, and I think Spare Parts is... But that being said, there's 2 or 3 other Davo stories I would possibly think on audio are actually better than the TV shows. So I thought, shame on me, because when I gave my list of 5, I didn't include any audios. And but he's right. I think Spare Parts is well and truly a worthy Davo story to go in any top 5 of Peter Davison stories. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So, on that note, let's jump up out of the rabbit hole, and we are going to speak with Ian Brooker very soon. But first, we're going to talk about one of the very first stories that he appeared in, and I think it was the first one that he recorded for Big Finish. He did Dalek Empire afterwards, but Dalek Empire was released first. So let me read a blurb for Embrace the Darkness. The Doctor and Charlie travel to the remote Cimmerian system to unravel the mystery of its son. But darkness has already embraced the scientific base on Cimmeria 4 in more ways than one. In a fight for survival, the Doctor must use all his wits against a deadly artificial life form and an ancient race whose return to the Cimmerian system threatens suffering and death on an apocalyptic scale.
Mayday! Recognition code 2307-001600-100. Cimmeria 4 base. Loss of power. No light. Structural damage. Complicate. Help us. We're in the dark.
What's that? The Sumerian system. Beautiful, isn't it?
Yes. Incredible colours. So bright.
Then one day, it wasn't.
Wasn't? You mean it wasn't bright?
Yes, or so the stories go.
You are safe. Safe forever.
Please, no.
Oh my god. We're losing light. Emergency lamps, now!
Oh god. That's it. I can't see a thing. A planet with no sun and the lights go out. This is not good.
Let's not panic, people.
Ah! Hey. What are you doing over here? Who? Olenja?
I haven't moved.
But I felt something touch my arm. There's something in here with us. Please. No.
Embrace the darkness.
Embrace the Darkness, the Facts and the Trivia. Written by Nicholas Briggs. Number 31 in the monthly range, but it's also season 2 of the Paul McGann stories, but still being numbered in the monthly range. Recorded on the 22nd, 25th and 26th of January 2001 in Sheffield, though the website says the Moat Studios, which is incorrect. Released in April 2022, starring Paul McGann as the 8th Doctor, India Fisher as Charlotte Pollard, Nicola Boyce as Olicina, still got it wrong, Ian Brooker as Rosam, Mark McConnell as Hallard, and Lee Moore as Ferris. Directed by Nicholas Briggs, executive producer was Jacqueline Rayner, sound design and music by Jim Mortimer, produced by Gary Russell and Jason Hagelery, and cover art by Clayton Hickman. Clayton Hickman had wanted to do the cover all in tones of black, but when I was trying to design, he couldn't see it, so in the end changed his design for the cover. This series was the first script to go into the studio that Gary Russell hadn't read, partly because he trusted Nicholas Briggs to get it right, but also partly because it was being written over the first week that the team were all in the studio in Bristol. And so it was recorded in Bristol. I don't know why I said Sheffield before. It's Bristol it was being recorded in, which is where Paul McGann's from. Ian Brooker was best known for playing Wayne Foley in The Archers. Gary was sitting next to Nick as he was directing and was very impressed by the voices that Nikki Boyce that she was able to do for the Shimmerans. But he was more surprised when he realised it wasn't Nikki, but Ian Brooker who was providing the voices. The story was originally written for the 7th Doctor and Ace and was called Return of the Swarm, but got reworked for Paul McGann when they suddenly needed a whole series of stories quickly. This was the final script to be recorded in the 2nd season recording block. Nick, Nicola and Mark were all involved in a car crash on the way to studio on one of the days and had to go to casualty to be checked out first and cleared for neck damage. This was the first script by Nick where he didn't do the sound design and music, and he was also sick during the whole recording of this episode. Paul McGann was exhausted by the end of this run of 2 weeks. He'd only returned from filming in New Zealand the day before the block had started and was struggling by the end. This can't really be heard though in the finished product, however it was causing a lot of stress in the recording studio. The link in this story to the overriding arc of the season is the fleet of Type 70 TARDISes that would appear again in Neverland to actually capture our TARDIS. And the name Rossum, which is the robot in this play, is based on the lead character in the Czech play Rur by Karlik Kapek. This is the first time the term robot is ever used, and robot is the Czech word for forced labour. And that is the facts and the trivia.
Thank you, Philip. I'm glad you corrected yourself because I was about to correct you, but I don't have to. You did it already. Yes, recorded in Bristol. So what I noticed on this re-listen of Embrace the Darkness is, once again, it is one of those early classic scripts from Nick Briggs, but it is done in such a way as that it could only possibly be an audio adventure. You couldn't do this any other way, particularly some of the cliffhangers in particular. That cliffhanger for episode 1 was absolutely mind-blowing.
I was actually going to say, I'm not sure whether you could actually play the cliffhanger for episode 1, but I've never known a cliffhanger. As I was listening through, that cliffhanger, it works perfectly. The music, the dialogue, the way the music cuts out, the sound effect, the pause, Charlie's last line, boom. It is just the most... I mean, it's not spectacular, it's not a monster, it's nothing, but it's just such a powerful cliffhanger. And it's similar to episode 3, but episode 1, perfect cliffhanger.
Hello? Who's that? I can hear you moving. Who's that?
Who are you?
I'm Charlie Pollard. Who are you?
Ferris. I'm Ferris. I've got Olenza with me. Where are you?
Where? Over here in the doorway. Can't you see the light?
Light? There is no light.
But you sound as if you're in the same room as me. Surely you can see the light.
No.
No?
No, we can't.
Oh, wait a minute. I can just make you out. Yes, a man and a woman. This way. That's right. You must be able to see me now.
No. You sound so close.
I am. I'm looking right at you. Can't you see me?
They took away the light. How can you see us?
They? Who do you mean? But anyway, there's a light in this lifeboat thing I arrived in. Can't you see it? Oh my God.
What? What is it?
I can see your faces. You don't know, do you?
Don't know what.
Your eyes.
What about them?
You've lost your eyes.
It painted the picture in my head like it's never been painted before. The way that was delivered by India Fisher. And you're right, the sound design. And I've got to give a mention to Jim Mortimer. He's legendary in my mind when it comes to sound design. Of course, he wrote The Natural History of Fear. I think he did the sound design on that too. I can't remember, but this is incredible. He was very involved with the audio visuals as well. So lots of early Big Finish throws back to the audio visuals, and Jim Mortimer is not a throwback to the audio visuals, but he was definitely involved in that. And his sound design is so different. That is one of the things that makes this story in particular so unique for me.
So part of the reason why I struggled with it the first time was a bit of body horror in terms of the main cast having their eyes pulled out. Spoilers, sorry, but get hold of it, guys. Things do get fixed by there, which is nice, but in terms of the whole horror of that actually happening is pretty horrific. But what I had forgotten was the warmth. That first scene with the crew and the way they tease each other and playing with each other is just so beautifully written that there's just these magic moments of, what did John Purdy want? Magic moments of, I forget what his terminology John Purdy wanted in every script. This is what Nick Briggs has actually provided here. And so that opening scene with the three crew members, it is just full of so much warmth and fondness, which is so when it goes bad, the terror and the darkness and the fear for each other is all the more powerful. And once again, the warmth and friendliness with the Doctor and Charlie is also there. Part of why this season works so well is as an overriding, that overriding story happening throughout all of them. And it's probably the smallest here, which is those Type 70 TARDISes all appearing, the Doctor slowly moving backwards in time to disappear from them. It's hard to tell at this point whether he knew what was going on or not, but that's going to play a big part later on in Neverland. But the way that every story feeds into each other's story, and yet you've got this closeness and warmth between the characters. I mean, the Doctor and Charlie, once again, just this warmth between them, and the way they play backwards and forwards, the trust they have for each other. There's even a line where Nikki actually asks, would he be traveling with him knowing the danger? And she says, well, no, I'd still go, because Charlie's home is with the Doctor, and that the home is with the TARDIS. And just the way that is expressed, I think, makes this story all the more powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to two of the guest cast who Nick would continue to use in Dalek Empire. Mark McDonald, of course, would go on to have a major role in Dalek Empire 1 and 2, and Ian Brooker, as well as Rosm, who had quite a large role in this particular story, because there wasn't just one Rosm, there was a couple of Rosms, so he got to play different types throughout the story, which was very interesting too. And I like Ian Brooker's time with Big Finish. He plays all different types of characters, and this was a really good one. It would have been a lot of fun for him, I reckon.
Yep. I think all the cast. It's only a very small cast, but they really play well off each other. I mean, Ian Brooker as Roslin really does make the whole thing menacing, because he's the menace of the piece, but does it in a very matter of fact. I guess because he's playing a robot, there's no malice there, but the danger is real, and the logic is what makes him so dangerous, because he just can't be appealed to in any way, and so that character is so strong. And as I said, the other three, Nicholas Briggs, just wonderful in terms of, from being such a warm character at the beginning, it's interesting how the blindness affects each character, because they all take a different path. She just becomes bitter and angry by what's happened, whereas Ferris Lee Moon ends up taking a much more what do you say? That's how it should be, sort of thing, just acceptance. Whereas Mark McDonald's character basically goes insane. So it's interesting how the three different characters, Nick gives them different journeys to go on with the same experience, which once again, it just builds belief in this play that these three characters are going to experience different things, and how they react to the same consequence plays out differently for each of them, which I think is just real. I think Neil has really established such a believable group of people in the situation that I was carried away by their storyline and their characterization. Even more so than the story. The story itself was fine, but these characters are what actually hold you on and what keep you pushing through the story.
Yep, absolutely. So I think it was great to have a chance to listen to this one again, and thanks to Ian Brooker, we were able to do that. And I mean, he's still working on Big Finish stories. He was most recently in Tarrant, which was released, I think, last year. And so it would have been recorded maybe 18 months ago, and still going strong. So on that note, why don't we cross over to our chat with Ian Brooker right now? Well, joining us today is someone I'm very excited to be talking to. He's an actor, a theatre actor, voice artist, and one of the early Big Finish company players who is still doing Big Finish today, and that is Ian Brooker. Welcome, Ian.
Thank you, and hello to you all.
Great to have you, Ian.
Thank you so much for coming on. I've been hearing your voice right from the early days of Big Finish. You have a very distinctive voice, and I love some of the voices that you do throughout the various plays. You've done many of them throughout the years, but I'm curious to know, because you grew up throughout the 60s, and were you influenced at all in those younger days by a little science fiction television series by any chance?
Yeah, Doctor Who in the 60s was a big part of my life. I absolutely loved it. I hardly ever missed an episode in the 60s, except for the occasional ones where I was on holiday or it fell on a Christmas day, and so I missed that one. But yes, it was massive. I absolutely loved it. So I saw it from 1963 onwards, and but my recollection of it is not great for the early years. But it's images like Dalek Invasion of Earth. It was on the front of the Radio Times in 64. And then the Zarbi, the monoids terrified me. It was round about the time. I remember William Hartnell changing into Patrick Troughton, and how confusing that was for me. I had no idea well, I suppose everybody who didn't realize that the actor was changing, that it was very, very odd. But now I think of it, how accepting I was as a child, that I'd watched Peter Cushing play Doctor Who on the big screen the year before and earlier that summer. So I was accepting of Peter Cushing being Doctor Who as well as Hartnell. So for me, it was just another face becoming the Doctor. And within a few weeks of Power of the Daleks, I'd accepted Patrick Troughton. But yeah, it was an enormous influence on me. And I suppose I like most children, pretended to be Daleks in the playground. I like to think that I was the Doctor occasionally. But I used to do my own comic strips in the late 60s of Doctor Who. And with the Daleks, Yeti, and Ice Warriors, also things like that. And I even did cutouts. So I would have done the voices for all these characters. I also was a great follower of the Tintin books. I used to voice all the characters in the Tintin books too. And this was just on my own. So it was, a rather sad, lonely existence working through these books and whatever, and playing with these Doctor Who characters and whatever. And I've even got a pottery TARDIS that I made. Must have been around about 1970. And it's a bit chipped, but it's still in existence.
Picking up on Tintin, if as a voice actor, if there was one character in Tintin that you were given the opportunity to voice today, who would it be for you?
Well, I suppose Captain Haddock, and I loved the Thompson twins as well. But by that time, obviously, there were the animations coming through. And they nearly, I think they had American voices. I'm not quite sure about that, but they would have influenced my voice, my characterizations at the time for my own private use. But yes, I always thought that I would be, because my interest in varied characters, very suitable for radio. But it took me quite some time to get through to casting in radio. And my breakthrough was in 1997 when I started doing a lot for the BBC. And off the back of that, I got the first gig with Nick with Big Finish. But the very first BBC radio serial I did was Lorna Doone. And the person who had adapted it was Barry Letts.
Oh, wow.
And so I met Barry on the production, and even in one crowd scene, he stepped in to be a part of the crowd, so I acted with him. So it was absolutely delightful. And I talked to him about Doctor Who, and at that time I was intending to play Professor Quatermass in a new staging in a quarry in Leicestershire of Quatermass and the Pit. And I told Barry about this, and he said, doing it in a quarry is another connection to Doctor Who, because obviously a lot of 1970s Doctor Who was done in quarries. But I didn't actually end up doing Quatermass and the Pit because I just got cold feet about the logistics of where I was going to stay and all the rest of it. But I also had a very nice letter from Nigel Neal at the time, which Toby Haydock in his new book on the Quatermass experiment has quoted from by my permission, of course. But yeah, this was the beginning of my radio career. And so I did radio right up through the noughties and past the millennium. But by that time, Nick had responded to my cassette that I'd sent in, and very, very quickly invited me down to Bristol to record a couple of Paul McGann Doctor Who's, Time and the Daleks and Embrace the Darkness. Which
I'd like to get to those in a moment, but I'm curious about what got you into acting in the first place, because I believe you're part of a family who's been acting for a long, long time. And so you must have been exposed to the business in that way. Is that correct?
Well, curiously not, because my interest in acting seemed to come from nowhere, as far as I was concerned as a child. I was a very shy child, and so therefore I masked that shyness by hiding behind characters and character voices, etc. And but I did a lot of drama at school. I was very lucky at my school. We used to do 3 productions a year. But again, my mother hadn't been involved. My grandmother had been brought up in the atmosphere of the late Victorian Edwardian theatre, but she hadn't been part of the theatre since the First World War. So that connection in my line had been broken. It wasn't until my granny died in 1978 and I was left all these books that I realized that it was an enormous theatrical family. And from about 1980 onwards, I started to research it. And I got in contact with other relatives and I found them and realized that they were also researching this vast theatrical family, which starts in about 1756. And every day since then, there's always been an actor, a theatre director, a theatre manager, a dramatist, a screenwriter, somewhere in the family. It's been it's an extraordinary family. And so I spent the last 40 years researching it. So when I'm not acting, I'm researching the family. And over these years, I've acquired an enormous archive. And so I'm now getting down to writing the history of the family. And I hope I have time to do it because it's a lot of work.
And I believe there's one relative who was in the business that would be very well known to lots of people. Is that correct?
That's right, yes. In the story of the Elephant Man, let's say the film, where Anne Bancroft plays Mrs. Kendall, the actress who goes to visit him and takes him to the pantomime. Mrs. Kendall was my great aunt. And I've got a picture here, if you like to see it. This is a rather nice image of her.
Yeah.
Wow.
She was quite an amazing actress, a very, very, very difficult personality. She was a very rude woman, and in her latter years, but she was at the top of the profession with her husband at the end of the 19th, beginning of the 20th century, up there with Ellen Terry, and some theatre critics believe that she was a better actress than Ellen Terry. But her reputation has diminished over the course of a century, and she's largely remembered now because of her association with the Elephant Man. Now, in reality, she never met the Elephant Man, but she corresponded with him, and her husband went to meet him, but told his wife that she shouldn't go and see him. But Mrs. Kendall arranged for the theatre, the pantomime visit, and she also arranged that Joseph Merrick be taken out to the country, to a country estate, for a few days, which he very much enjoyed, apparently. Sadly, all the correspondence between them was destroyed when the London hospital was bombed in the Second World War. And fortunately, the model church that he built for her, it actually was a German kit. It wasn't based on any local theatre. It's a German, a very Gothic-looking church, and the model was given to Mrs. Kendall, and she gave it back to the London hospital, and that does still exist.
Thanks for sharing that story. It was fascinating to hear of that connection. So let's jump back to your tape that you sent to Nick.
Yeah.
What led to you sending that tape on to him? Was it something that you sought out, or something you stumbled upon? How did that happen?
Well, I was, as you know, I was already doing radio drama, but also when Doctor Who started, 1960s and 70s Doctor Who started coming out on VHS, I started getting back into it again, and I started to take Doctor Who magazine, and in one I saw photographs of actors working for Big Finish. I thought, this looks interesting. I'll just send them an email. So that's what I did, and this was January 2001. And from that, Nick responded very, very quickly, and I sent in the tape, and I went straight down to Bristol to record these 2 audio Doctor Who's with Paul McGann.
Excellent, because that wasn't the usual place that they did their recordings. They were doing it there especially for Paul, weren't they? So
that's right. Paul was living in Bristol, and so he was happy to stay there. So they used the old BBC studios in Bristol, and it was a different setup to Big Finish's usual setup in the Moat Studios in London, where actors were normally in individual booths, and but at Bristol, we were in this open space, and it was very, very strange. We were put on, it was like a square studio. We were put in corners on microphones, and it was rather disconcerting because we had no physical relationship. And also we were not completely confined. With radio drama, there's quite a lot of movement between mics, and you have almost a set with the doors, stairs, and whatever. So you have quite a lot of movement between in the space. You don't have that with Big Finish. You're very, very stuck on the spot. And I found it very disconcerting, that very first one, Time of the Daleks, being separated, but with this open space between us. It was a lot easier for me when we did Embrace the Darkness, when I was in the booth doing the voice of Rosam and the Cimmerians and later the Solarians. And that was a lot easier for me to actually concentrate on what I was doing.
Can I just ask, had you done a lot of radio work up until that point? You've been in the Archers, or are you still in the Archers? I'm not sure.
I joined the Archers, I think, about 1999, and I played a sort of the character of Wayne Foley, who was the sort of local journalist DJ of Radio Borsetshire, this fictitious radio station. So I would interview people on my radio show. So I was doing a lot, and doing a wide variety of characters, and a lot of fantasy. We did 5 Children and It, the Story of the Amulet, all sorts of things.
So you used to do a lot of traditional radio, and so Big Finish was quite a change to the traditional radio setup.
Yeah. So it took a while to change the technique, really, because I've always tried to introduce quite a lot of physicality into the voice to suggest movement, space, relationship between the characters and whatever. And you need to think about how you're going to do that when you're confined completely to glass in a booth, when all the other actors are in their own individual booths on mics in the same situation. And fortunately, I learned it very quickly. But there was a funny thing happened when we were doing Embrace the Darkness. Nick was full of cold during that week. He wasn't feeling very well. His girlfriend at the time was Nicola Boyce, and Nicola was playing Orlensa, I think the character was, on this radio, this station on this isolated planet. And I was doing the voice of Rosam, this great sort of computerized security system, who had subsystems as well. So there's slight variation in the voices. But I was also doing the Cimmerians with Nick, but I did the bulk of the Sumerians, and they had a very high, sibilant voice, whereas Rosm had a very deep, booming voice. But when I was in the booth, we didn't just do Rosm, and then I went out and then came back in and did the Sumerians. We did them in real time. So I was constantly upping and downing the voice and changing the voice quality in real time, which was tricky, but it helped, I think. And when I was in the booth doing the Sumerians, Gary Russell, who was there, said to Nick, "Oh, Nikki boy, she's really good, isn't she?" And he was really amazed when I walked out the booth instead of Nicola. So, which was rather nice, really.
So I was listening to Embrace the Darkness today and was just thinking how I used to listen to audio back in the day. I used to listen to it in the car, or I'd listen to it on a stereo without headphones. But to hear it today with headphones, I don't think I'd ever listened to that one before with headphones. The sound design was truly incredible.
Terrifying.
I think you hear a lot more. Sorry?
Yeah.
I find it terrifying. The body horror and some of the sound effects. It freaks me out. Of all the stories in that first McCann series, it is so dark. It freaks me out every time. I get so scared of it.
Yeah, and the moment when the eyes are taken, it's really horrible. I think
Cliffhanger was done so well. I could visualize those faces without the eyes, and it was it was spine tingling stuff. It was good.
Yeah, I think it was a very, very good script by Nick, and it was perfect for audio, because obviously if you can't see anything, it just reinforces the fact that you can't see anything because it's audio. And I think it was a brilliant idea. And no, I had a great time on that. I think it really cemented my position with Big Finish, because Nick then cast me for Dalek Empire, the first series, which I think was later in the year. Which again was a wonderful experience.
Mind you, I think Dalek Empire was released first, so that was actually the first time we.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Interesting. Now, that was you working with a doctor on Embrace the Darkness, Time of the Daleks, but I believe you became the Doctor at one point.
Yeah. This is very strange. This was 2003. When they were doing the series, the Unbound series, I had done Old Mortality with Jeffrey Bailden. I later did Deadline. I'm not sure at what point I was asked, but I was in studio, and I think Jason came up to me and said, "Would you like to do a voice in another audio?" And I thought, yeah. And it turned out, I think John Ains was there as well, and it turned out to be the Doctor at the end of Full Fathom 5. David Collins' alternative and unpleasant version of the Doctor was shot at the end of the audio, and he regenerates into me, and his companion doesn't like the look of me either, so she shoots me. So I lasted 10 seconds. So all I say, I think, is, "Hello, I'm the Doctor. Who are you?" And that's my life as Doctor Who.
You're the shortest-lived Doctor of all Doctors.
That's right. Yeah, I know there's competition for it now, but for the shortest lived. But I'm still there, I think. And on all these completist lists, I keep popping up as having played Doctor Who. But so it's rather a nice thing to have on your CV.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of the Unbound, you mentioned Old Mortality there, and you'd worked with Carol Ann Ford in that one. And growing up as a boy in the 60s watching Doctor Who, what was that like for you, being in studio doing Doctor Who with her?
Oh, it was lovely, absolutely wonderful. it was a real fulfillment to meet Carol. And I think I ended up working with Carol about 4 times. And we did the follow-up one with Jeffrey Baildon, Storm of Angels, and then later Susan's War, which also had William Russell, which was another delight. But yeah, working with Carol was very, very special. And All Mortality, I loved doing. There was a really good time in the green room, which I understand what the green room is. Yeah,
where actors go and relax.
Yeah, okay. There were so many great stories told. Now, the first one, it was the first time that Carol had been in studio. The first time I think she'd met Darren Nesbitt since Marco Polo. So there they were together working again, and they had a laugh. And the subject that came up was the monkey that got out of the cage and got up into the lighting rig in the studio and peed on them from above. So it was that one. And Jeffrey Baildon told this amazing story about when he went to see Matthew Bourne's Swan Lake in London, which I don't know if you've seen it in Australia, but it's an incredible piece of choreography, and it's an all-male cast. Now Jeffrey was bowled over by this production, and he hailed a cab, and he got into the taxi, and he was telling the taxi driver about this wonderful production he'd seen, and the taxi driver took him home, and Jeffrey got out and paid the fare, and the taxi driver got out and went down on his knees, and he said, "I want to be your slave." And Jeffrey was horrified. He said, "You've completely misunderstood what I said." And he had to disabuse him of what he thought, and disappeared into his flat. Jeffrey was a total delight to work for, and I was so pleased that the team got together the year later to do a second Unbound, and that was lovely. And I did the voice of the Showstone in that, which was a very high, sibilant voice, a bit similar to the Sumerians, I suppose. But in between, I'd done Rob Sherman's play Deadline, which I think is one of the best Big Finish plays ever. I think it was hugely clever and so imaginative. And there was a wonderful cast. Obviously, Derek Jacobi played Martin Bannister, and we had an absolute ball on that. I was very, very lucky. Nick asked me to play this very strange assembly of characters, to be Sidney Newman in 2 versions, because the character of Martin Bannister that Derek Jacobi played had gone senile, and he couldn't remember if Sidney Newman was Canadian or Australian. So he had to be both. And he that was mixed up also with a young journalist from the Juliet Bravo magazine. Now, I don't know if you ever got Juliet Bravo in Australia, but it was it was a sort of very minor police series on the BBC, and it was very popular. But anyway, that was worked into the plot, and the character Martin Bannister, who had been commissioned by Sidney Newman in Rob's play, to write the first story of Doctor Who, it was never commissioned, so it only ever existed in his imagination and memory, whereas he had gone on to write for Juliet Bravo. So I played this young journalist who I actually somewhat based on Benjamin Cook. And
Doctor Who magazine.
Yeah, that's right. And also the Supreme one, which was a sort of Nick described it as a fairly naff alien, but he had a Dalek voice. I was given the ring modulator to use, and that was great fun to use because I don't know if you've ever played around with a ring modulator, but any slight variation in pitch in your voice is quite exaggerated, and you can have real fun with it. And so I had this great scene where I went from one character to the other, and it was. I think I did it in one take because I'd worked on it really hard at home to get it right, and that is one of the best days in studio I've ever had, I think.
Fantastic. Now you've done lots and lots of different ranges with Big Finish. You've been in, I won't say everything, but lots and lots of different things. You're in the Cyberman series. I noticed you're also in Judge Dredd as well, with another amazing voice artist in Toby Longworth.
Toby,
incredible.
Toby was great.
Did you learn anything from Toby?
The thing about Big Finish is you'd never have a read through. The only read through we ever had was for Deadline for Derek Jacobi. And just to throw this in while I remember it, the only day they ever did a read through before the studio started was Deadline. And I was late for both read throughs because of trouble on the tube. And I was so embarrassed. Anyway, with a read through, you get an opportunity to hear every other person's voice they're going to use throughout the drama. Toby and I, when we did Old Mortality, I think he played a robotic servant, and we ended up having almost exactly the same voice, if I remember. And so you have to quickly try and change it when you've heard his voice. But Toby is a phenomenal voice actor, and I think he's got such a range. And when he did Judge Dredd, there was that one where he just played all the characters. There was no other actor in it. Yeah, solo. Yeah, absolutely phenomenal performance. And I do keep in touch with Toby, and even though we haven't had an opportunity to work together since Pathfinder Legends, I think that's the last time, he sends me a Christmas card, and I saw him last October at the Big Finish party, which was nice because everybody was there, and it was a real nice coming together of everybody. Yeah, he's tremendous actor, Toby. Real personality. Yeah.
It's interesting. Pathfinder Legends is one of those series I never actually got into, and I was listening to a couple of trailers on the Big Finish website today. Sounded it's high quality as always, but it's based on a role playing game. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. I think some of the writing it sounded like the jeopardies you would get in a role playing, and it's difficult to escape from the structure of that when it's so established with the story. But John Ainsworth cast that, and he cast 4 actors: Kerry Skinner, Stuart Alexander, Trevor Littledale, and myself, to play these somewhat iconic characters. I played this axe-wielding dwarf called Harsk, and I had to think of a distinctive voice that didn't sound like Gimli in Lord of the Rings. So I made him sort of a bit estuary English, but very, very deep and gruff. But it was quite a difficult voice to do, and it was one of the most physically exhausting recording series I've ever done, because there was so much fighting, and obviously when you're recording these fights, it's physically draining and vocally draining as well, because you're shouting a lot. And we did three series of those, and we really bonded as a team, the four of us, and we had some regular guest actors like Kate Brown and Ramon Tikaram, people like that, and no, really tremendous.
Excellent. I must listen to a couple of those. Check them out. Now, you mentioned John Ainsworth, and you also reminded me that you were in a series that I really enjoyed when it came out, called Space 1889, which is a totally separate company to Big Finish. It was John's company. I think it was Noise Monster. Was that
Noise
correct?
Monster? Yeah.
So tell us about that. How different was that process to Big Finish? Did you do things a bit differently or similar?
Pretty much the same. We still, I think, we recorded at Moat Studios. It was just under a different title, different company. I think very much. The thing about John is that he has like a rep company, and he regularly uses those actors again and again and again. And it's nice because you'll see old friends coming back. It wasn't that dissimilar from a Big Finish, really. No, the conditions, the booths were exactly the same as they were for a Big Finish recording.
And do you listen to all your recordings when they come back to you? Are you a bit of a sci-fi fan yourself and re-listen to them?
Yeah. I listened to them once. I must say I haven't listened to them for a long time. But it's always nice to think that was okay. That I'm happy with that. Obviously you have some recordings which they may not turn out quite as you'd hoped, but for the most part they do. And I've got to have the habit of listening to them, really. But I should give it another listen, I think. I've been asked to put together a sort of talk about my life as an actor by a festival in Ireland, because I live half my time in Ireland. And I was thinking that as audio and radio has been such a big part of my life, I ought to have some clips from the audios that I've done, just to show the sort of work that I did, because the people over there have no knowledge of what I've done at all. So
I just noticed a story that you did flick past my my line there. You were playing. You once played a Croton, or some Crotons, with the famous South African accent. So another classic Doctor Who villain that you got to play, and you played that. But you've also played with quite a few different Doctors too. Have you played with all of them?
I didn't work with Sylvester. I worked with Colin a couple of times. I worked with Peter a couple of times. Sadly, I never worked with Tom, though I an extraordinary experience. I was at the Sound House in London doing a Pathfinder Legends, and Tom was in the other studio doing a curious Roman ancient Britain drama, which had Brian Blessed and John Rhys Davies in as well. And Tom caught my eye, and he came over, and we effectively had an audience with Tom Baker for about an hour. And John Rhys Davies sat in on it, and it was hilarious. It was just so bizarre. I wish I'd recorded it. I wish I'd taken a photograph of the gathering, because it was so bizarre. Because at one point, John came out of the studio, opened the door, and it nearly hit Tom. And Tom gave him a look, and John said afterwards, "He really scares me." And that was a wonderful occasion.
You say you did work with Sylvester McCoy, but I think you did the settling with Sylvester McCoy.
That was one of those where I wasn't actually in the production, but Gary contacted me afterwards and asked if I'd just do. Is it General Sinnott?
Yes.
Or character? Yeah. Just to drop the voice in. So I was part of post-production, really, and that I wasn't actually in it. So, and I think there's another, an Irish Wild Time that I'm not quite in.
Not quite in.
Yeah, but that sort of thing used to happen quite a lot with other actors. Used to be dropped in if they didn't have a full cast or the odd voice hadn't been recorded.
There's two other people I'd just like to mention. You said you worked with William Russell. So what was he like? Because he was pretty old by the time he came and did Susan's War, and you were playing Sensorites in that one, I believe.
Yeah, Sensorites, Crotons, and I had quite a lot of time chatting to William, or Russell Enoch. Russell is, as he's known. He was absolutely lovely, and I asked him about his time on Doctor Who and what he'd done immediately the year after when he went back into theatre. He was very, very happy to talk about that, and he was quite amazing in studio, because he was about 94, 95 at the time, and you wouldn't think so. He was like somebody 20 years younger, and he's still very much on the ball, and he sounded just like he sounded like Ian Chesterton, and that was a very special thing for all of us, and it was certainly for me to be in an audio with Doctor Who history.
And then the other person I'd love to talk about is you did one of the Blake Sevens with Tarrant and Stephen Pacey. What was it like working in a Blake Seven?
Yeah. I worked with Stephen Pacey years ago on a radio production called Grand Hotel, and I'm cursed with a very good memory. Sadly, other actors don't have that memory. I'm more likely to remember them than they're likely to remember me. And when I met up with Stephen to do this thing, this was February 24, and I'd hoped he'd remember me, but he didn't. I always get actors to sign my front pages of all the audios I do, so I've got a lovely collection of all the actors I've ever worked with in radio and audio. But I played in this Tarrant series, Tarrant's nemesis, who is very, very ill, on his last legs, really. And it's the first confrontation between these characters for years. And Stephen's a very nice man and very, very easy to work with. Very nice cast too. Again, John had cast it, and John is very, very loyal to his actors. As I say, he brings back people from years ago, and Stephen's good to work with. Regarding the Crotons, of course, Philip Maddock was in that, and Philip Maddock was what used to be one of my favourite TV villains. Of course, he was in the film version of Dalek Invasion Earth.
Yep.
And a remarkable man, a multilinguist. He was telling me about when he went to Albania, he had to have his beard removed because at the airport you'd have the state barber who would remove anyone's beard if they came in at the airport. An extraordinary thing. And also his adventures in South America. But a remarkable actor and a very, very bright, intelligent man. And he wasn't, I don't think, very well when he recorded the Croton return. And I think he died fairly soon after that. But I felt really, really chuffed to have worked with him. And another actor I worked with in radio was Peter Jeffrey, who was in the Macra Terror and the Androids of Tara.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah. I was very lucky to work with him a number of times, and really, really nice man. So, it's very special when you've watched these people on television for years, and then you end up working with them. It's really quite marvelous.
What about David Warner? Because, of course, you appeared in Sapphire and Steel as well.
Yeah. David Warner was always one of my favourite actors. And I was so pleased to be able to work with him. And it actually turned out that I'd written to him about 20 years before. Again, going back to my theatrical family, one of my cousins was a teacher at RADA, the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. And she was there from the late 40s to the early 60s. And she taught people like John Hurt, Ian Holm, Rosemary Leach, a whole assembly of people. And one of the people I wrote to was David Warner, and I never had a reply from him. So when I actually met him, I raised the subject of this, and it was quite clear that he was very uncomfortable about responding. He did remember. Now, my relative was an absolute monster. She terrorized students. She was the sort of teacher you do not want. And she would belittle and humiliate students in front of the class. And he didn't want to upset me by saying what he thought. But years later, he was in a relationship, a long-term relationship with Lisa Bowman. And I was communicating with Lisa online and talking about, I'd found this picture of Mary Duff at RADA. And she said, David's just said, monster. And, yeah.
There you go. No, very good. It's excellent to hear all your stories about all these people, and fantastic all the work that you put into Big Finish over the years. So I really appreciate you sharing that. What else have you been doing, and what have you got coming up?
Well, I'm 65 now, so I should be thinking of retirement, but actors don't like to retire. No, they just go on until they drop, really. I'm currently working on this book I mentioned about my theatrical family, and that's taking up a lot of my time. But I used to run a theatre company specializing in dramatized ghost stories. And I used to dramatize M.R. James and other spooky writers. And one of the stories that I dramatized, what I actually used to do as a one-man piece, was The Room in the Tower by E.F. Benson. And it's a smashing story. It's about a recurring dream, and this nasty figure that appears in the tower. It's very, very good, and I'm actually relearning that. I think the last time I did it was in the early 90s, and it's rather nice to find that it's still in here somewhere, and it's coming back to me fairly quickly. It's about 20 minutes long, so I'm working on that. Now, I think I may have mentioned that the most recent job I did was, again, quite bizarre. It seemed to come out of nowhere. I was in Italy on holiday, and my agent contacted me to say, would you be prepared to audition for this? It's a modern-day Western. I thought, what? And they're filming in Bulgaria. I thought, this sounds bizarre. And I thought, well, yeah, okay, I'll do it. But I'm not going to do it when I'm on holiday. I'll wait till I'm back. And they allowed me a bit of leeway with the deadline for auditioning. And I did a self-tape, as we actors have done really since COVID times. And I sent up my audition. I thought, well, chances are I'm not going to get this role. Why on earth, with all the American actors around, they're going to cast me in this part? Now, the part was a very small part, but a significant part in the development of the arc of the main character. And he's a real curmudgeon, my character. He just complains about things. I thought, I'll go for it. So I did it. I uploaded it, and I thought, yeah, what the hell, forget it. A week later, I'm offered the job. And I fly to Bulgaria, March of 24, and I do my scenes with John Voight. And John Voight, who whose career I've followed since Midnight Cowboy and Deliverance and other films like that. Big American star. And he was great to work with. There's no ego, good sense of humor, very, very generous, very, very nice to me. And I had a really good time. And I went out twice, actually. And the very last scene of the film was a night shoot, which I filmed at the end of March. And the film is called High Ground. It's a sort of fairly conventional Western. It's good guys with guns versus bad guys with guns, and the guns win. And, and typical American thing. But Henry Thomas from E.T. was in it as well. So it was something I didn't get to meet. He'd flown back from the night shoots the night before I was there. But they gave me his trailer, and I had his enormous trailer for the night that I was shooting, and that was rather nice. So that was the most recent high-profile thing I did, and that's what's so strange about this business. So you never know where the next job's going to come from or what it's going to be, and that was a strange one. But the producer said that they'd have to get me back, so I might do another one for them at some point. But it's amazing. This studio is called New Boyana in Sofia in Bulgaria, and so many productions are made there. So many big American films, action movies. You know of it, I think. Yeah. And even Doctor Who has used it because they have lots which double for New York. They've also got a Roman section with amphitheatre and forum. It's just an incredible place. But, the film was supposed to be supposedly set in Colorado. So there were shots of Colorado, but it was nearly all done in Bulgaria.
Yeah.
When's it due to come out?
It's already out. It's on streaming.
Oh, it's out? Okay.
Yeah. I think, it's not a great film. It's but it's good. The performances are good. John Voight is excellent in it. He's 85, 86. He's just incredible. He won't retire. He just keeps on going. And yeah.
Well, once again, Ian, can I just say thank you for chatting with us and giving us some of your extraordinary memory on some of the people and scripts that you've worked on. It's been fascinating to listen to. And Tarrant wasn't that long ago, so I'm sure there's still more Big Finish for you to do that we'll be looking out for down the track.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, and I'm really touched that you thought of me, and obviously I responded to it, but your very kind comments certainly made my day when I watched your podcast. And
we love your work, Ian. We love your work. Thank you so much for sharing it.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's lovely, and lovely to speak to you. And thank you for having me on.
Coming soon from Big Finish Productions, Curse of the Crimson Throne, Crown of Fangs.
This is it. We've lost. She has overpowered us all. The fight is over. Iliosa has won. All hope gone. Hell will rise. Galarian will fall. And Corvosa. Doom will come to Corvosa.
No!
Eternal life. Endless power. A reign of 1,000 years. All mine. All mine.
Iliosa.
All mine.
Snap out of it, woman.
We don't yet know what we're going to face when we get to Castle Corvosa.
I think we have some idea. So you said, Hounds of Hell, Devils, Bloat Mages...
And the power of the Grey Maidens. A dragon! Guards, it's heading this way!
To Moscow
Do you see now, Semignato? My champions have failed, as I always knew they would. They have wasted their precious time, and now they cannot stop me. Events are unfolding exactly as we planned. The Everdawn pool is filled with the blood of Corvosa. Oh, the hour of my ascension is here, at last! Big Finish. We love stories.
All right, our thanks to Ian Brooker for joining us. It was fantastic to have that chat. I'm glad we've got that on the record. So thank you, Ian, for that. Much appreciated. All right, we're nearing the end of our podcast episode today. We have one final thing to do, Philip, and I was looking at my list over here because I've actually, believe it, I've got a list, and the list says it's your turn to recommend something first.
So my recommendation for this week is I've been watching some old TV. So I'm a big fan of The West Wing by Aaron Sorkin. I think that's one of the best things ever done on TV. After he did The West Wing, he did a show that only lasted for one season called Studio 60 on Sunset Strip, which had some of his regular Sorkin players. Bradley Whitford is in it, and Tim Busfield, I think, Bushell, I think might be, who played Danny the reporter in West Wing. So those are both it, plus also some new players. It's set inside a comedy, or it's a show within a show, and so it's a show making a comedy show that happens on Friday nights. And Matthew Perry from Friends is also in it. He's probably the big leader, so he was paid the most to be in the show. And it just explores the making of a television program. So what happens in the writer's room, choosing comedy skits, what happens to the actors, the players, the director, and explores life in a comedy, making a comedy program once a week. It's just intelligent drama. It only lasted for one season. It was actually by NBC that the same season also produced 30 Rock, which is also about producing a comedy show, but in a half an hour sitcom form. All the critics loved this show, but it wasn't a huge rating success. In part, Aaron was doing things that people didn't do back then, like every story would refer to the story before. It was like one constant series, and often one show would end, the next show would take up exactly after it, which we do that all the time now on streaming services. But back then on television, if you missed an episode, you'd fall behind and wouldn't watch again. So what he was trying to do was actually a bit advanced to the TV in 2007. But it's all on YouTube. You can all find it out there. And if you like Aaron Sorkin, clever writing, amazing dialogue, it's a really great program. What about you, Dwayne? What are you paying attention to at the moment?
Well, speaking of Aaron Sorkin, I recently watched A Few Good Men. He wrote that, didn't he?
He did.
He wrote the play. Is that right?
He wrote the play, and then he also wrote the film script later.
Adapted the film. Fantastic. Yeah. It's a movie I never get sick of watching over and over again. I love it. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
But I have been watching some even older stuff due to some chats that I've been having with some friends on another channel called the Sensesphere. That's Brendan's channel over there. Some Australian fans and I get together every now and then, and we do a detox show. And one of the panelists is from Adelaide. He goes by the name of Boomer Doug, and he also has a YouTube channel based on The Man from U.N.C.L.E. So I've been going back and watching The Man from U.N.C.L.E. from the beginning, and I've watched episodes here and there. I remember watching them when they were on TV, but never sort of started right from the very beginning. And boy, I love it. It's really, really fun to watch. There's some big names in it, like Richard Donner is one of the early directors who went on to do stuff like Superman and Lethal Weapon, those films. Who was the composer? Jerry Goldsmith did the music, so he did the theme tune, and the theme tune for the first series, which is the black and white series, is such an earworm. I just cannot get it out of my head. So as soon as I hear the theme tune at the end of an episode, I just want to get on to the next one so I can hear the theme tune again. I just love that kind of thing. I'm a bit of an audiophile, Aaron. Did I call you Aaron?
You did.
Today. We're talking Aaron Sorkin. See, we've got to leave that in. You've got to leave my mistakes in too. Philip, I'm a bit of an audiophile. There you go. I got it out finally. So yeah, that's what I've been watching, and I'm really enjoying getting through with it. I've been watching a few other old shows at the same time. So watch one of Man from U.N.C.L.E., something else, but I'm going to save the something else's for my future recommendations. So there you go.
Great. Now, can I just do a little plug for something that Big Finish has for free at the moment, which is Big Finish have released 2 stories by being read by Peter Purvis about Stephen for his 60th anniversary, I guess. It must be Stephen's 60th anniversary, written by Jacqueline Rayner. So if you go to the Big Finish website and you log in, you can download for free 2 stories read by Peter Purvis about Stephen, celebrating Stephen's 60th anniversary by Jacqueline Rayner. And so I haven't had a chance to listen to them yet. I have downloaded them. But
I just downloaded them this afternoon as well. They're called A Feast of Stephen. So 2 stories in there. Yeah.
With a bit of a play on that, The Feast of Stephen from the Dalek Master Plan. So enjoy, everyone, because free gifts, always great.
And we've got a special treat coming up for the next episode. We're going to be joined by one of the actors who played Davros on television. There was 3 in the classic series, and that is David Goodison. He's going to be joining us because he has appeared in a couple of Big Finish episodes as well. So we're going to get a bit of a rundown on his history, and that's going to be lots of fun, I suspect. Long-time voice artist, so fascinating stuff. So look forward to that next week. We're going to have Davros on the Sirens of Audio. So thank you, Philip. Been wonderful being in your company.
And yours as well, Dwayne.
And we'll catch you all next time. This has been the Sirens of Audio. Embrace the audio drama. with our guest Ian Brooker and your hosts Philip Edney and Dwayne Bunny. Theme music by Joe Kramer. Catch up with all the latest info, including news on our live events at sirensofaudio.com. Got some feedback? Send your email to sirensofaudio@gmail.com, or you can find us on all our social media at Audio Sirens. Thanks for listening, audiophiles. We'll hear you next time.